So NATO actually has its own YouTube channel, and it puts up their statements, official statements about the ongoing involvement in Libya, and they with Afghanistan and all these other places as well. And it's a riot. It really is a laugh. You should subscribe and check it out. I've been doing that. It makes it all the more transparent how flimsy this sticking to the resolution is. They will keep citing it. They will keep if any difficult question comes up about overstating their overreaching their powers, this kind of thing, they will refer back to UNSC 1973 like it's some kind of biblical mandate. Well, they call it is a mandate, but they treat it as divine mandate, you know. Even though this was the most vague of mandates possible, they've still managed to overstretch it. Even though it literally justified anything in the pursuit of protecting civilians from attack, they've still managed to overstep it. They had one question in this press briefing, the one that I've just watched, where the guy asks, NATO's been criticised recently for overstepping its mandate. What have you got to say for yourself on that, on those accusations? And, well, first of all, just look at this. Look at what she says here.
Yeah, there's been recently criticism of NATO, especially at the United Nations and the UN Security Council members, that NATO has overstepped its mandate because of the fact that, like in this current situation where the pro-Gaddafi forces are obviously on the defensive, NATO is still striking, mounting airstrikes against them, although they're only aiming their fire at the attacking forces, at the attacking rebel forces. They're not endangering or threatening civilians, and that's why several countries have expressed unease with this continuing attack, which they say is biased in the sense that it's helping the rebels and working against the forces which are on the defense.
Well, I can start by saying that NATO is not overstepping its mandate, and the mandate given to the alliance was a mandate approved by all members. I mean, by the United Nations Security Council. And if you see the latest comments by the UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, he praised actually the role, the military role that NATO is playing, and what we are doing is basically implementing the United Nations Security Council mandate. I'm sure that Roland would like to add.
Did you notice that there? Yeah, slip up. It wasn't every member state that sanctioned this. There were some that abstained, that did not give their blessing to it. The Arab League, the Arab nations that backed it originally quickly backed off when they realised the scope and the scale of this operation. So it hasn't got universal backing support. Little slip of the tongue there, she's trying to oversell it. And she realised she couldn't make the claim that all of the member states supported it. But that's just a minor, we'll let her off that because she did correct herself. But yeah, the reason this guy asked the question, have you overstepped your mandate, is because now that in certain parts of Libya, Gaddafi's troops are on the defensive, are on the retreat, and NATO are still attacking those troops, can you legitimately argue that you are still doing it, still attacking to support, to defend civilians from attack, right? If Gaddafi's troops are on the defensive, they're retreating, and NATO are still bombing the crap out of Gaddafi's troops, and any bombs, any attacks that are being sent over from Gaddafi are just aimed at the rebel forces that are advancing and pushing them back, and not civilians. So, rebel troops who are effectively winning in certain areas. Can you still argue that is to protect civilians, because that's the mandate of UNSC in 1973? And the answer that she gives is really shit. It's a nothing answer. It's an absolute nothing answer. It just babbles something about having a mandate, and I'll link the whole video in the low bar, you can go have a look. I'm not going to clip it all into this video, take too long, I don't want this to be too long. But then she hands over to another guy from NATO, and he argues a little bit better, but it's still bullshit. And why is it bullshit? Because what he basically argues is, well, yes, we may be bombing tanks that are retreating, but if you look at the mandate, it says that we can attack anything that might be that could be a risk, a danger to civilians. So those tanks could be used against civilians. It's possible they could use those tanks against civilians some point in the future. But that reasoning is fail, because you could stretch that to the nth degree, couldn't you? You know, Gaddafi and all of his troops could be dead. The rebels could have completely taken over the entire country. You could have maybe 1 or 2 Gaddafi soldiers left somewhere out in the hills, and they've got 1 tank left, and that tank could technically be used to fight civilians. So what, NATO are going to continue bombing then, when there's 1 tank and 2 soldiers left in the hills? I don't think so. It's a slippery slope argument. But yeah, the mandate was so vague that it's allowed them to push it to these extremes without fear of actual recrimination beyond shadow of a doubt. Although logic tells you that, you overstepped the mark on day 1 of the bombing campaigns. You know, no fly zone quickly turned into a no drive zone. Now it's a no TV zone. What's even funnier though is if you go to their videos, they have comments on approval only. So yes, so NATO, this massive military power, is scared of free speech, scared of dissent. I left a couple of less than polite comments on there. They've not been approved. I've also left some entirely civil comments just disagreeing with what they're doing. They also have not been approved. So yeah, go and liberate those repressed countries out in the Middle East whilst oppressing free speech on your YouTube channel. Nice work, NATO. So it's just ridiculous, you know, and it's annoying because NATO is set up as this stateless entity. You know, it's not answerable to any one country. It doesn't have any really have any authority above it, really. The EU's supporting it, doesn't seem to criticise it at all. In this video that I'll link below, you'll see that Ban Ki-moon has praised the efforts of NATO. In fact, that's one of the arguments she gives. She says, well, we can't be overstepping our mark because Ban Ki-moon says we're doing a good job. Yeah, that wasn't an answer to the question. But anyway, yeah, so it's not accountable to anyone really. It's a military pact that is used to dominate and oppress and manipulate for corporate interests, for power gain. It's not a benevolent peacekeeping force. And this is why I think it's important to look at NATO and to scrutinise NATO. And this is why I've tried to engage Landon Cole in conversation about them several times, and I'd like to again, but he doesn't talk about them anymore. I wonder why. And yeah, sorry whether you like it or not, Landon, you are closest thing YouTube's got, this community's got to a representative for NATO. Yeah, you know, I don't want to get into all that, but Landon got a lot of time for some of his politics. He hits the nail on the head on a lot of different issues. Don't get me wrong, you know, he's a respectable chap and a lot of his views, but with the NATO stuff, I trust him as far as I could throw him. But there's no one else talking about it from NATO's perspective really in our community, and it's a very important factor. One of the major factors that one of the major reasons that America is so broke is, you know, its overinflated military-industrial complex machinations, and maybe that's the same with Europe. You know, maybe all these different countries that are paying into NATO's, you know, running. Well, who's paying for that? You and me. That money's not being magicked out of thin air. It's coming out of the taxpayers' pocket. So you know, that's us. So we should be proud of this bombing, you know, which is killing hundreds of civilians as well, by the way. So you're protecting civilians by bombing civilians, and you're protecting civilians by continuing to attack a retreating army in areas where they've basically lost their footing. Yeah, that and many other problems I have with NATO. I'm going to link in the low bar, and you really, please, you must, if you're at all interested in this stuff, go and see this video linked below. I had it featured for a while, so you may have already seen it. If you sub to him, of course, you'll have seen it. But it's by a user called the Azov. This guy is top notch. Go and subscribe if you're not already. I mean, this is just a rant that you've seen today, but this guy goes to a lot of effort. You know, he'll script the vids, so there's no ums and ahs, you know, and he'll go through the history of things, you know, so it's not rhetoric laden, you know, it's he will talk about the history of these things, the undeniable facts that show the true nature of things like NATO, things like imperialism. So if you're at all interested in those subjects, go and sub and go check out the video down below by the Azov. And yeah, I'll link the NATO video as well if you can stomach it. But yeah, that's all for today. Speak to you guys later. Bye bye.